where a variance is required, the applicant should go and make application to the zoning hearing board for that approval. It does not say that the township can summarily deny the application because a zoning approval might be required. So if it turns out that the result of our conversations is that a special exception is required for that, then we'll go to the zoning hearing board and get that special exception approval. And then there's a fourth bucket, which is, and this is very, very common in professional consultants' reviews, suggestions. Not necessarily ordinance-based, but these are things that we suggest would be better for the development. That bucket then gets subdivided into two things. One, we can do, we're not here to fight. We can certainly do some of those, and then some of them that we just can't do, or we don't think that we should have to do.
Michael, I'm sorry, I missed a bucket. I had will comply, ordinance compliance, suggestions.
Oh, someone needs discussion.
Items of discussion between the professionals. Thank you. Sorry.
That's why I needed you to do it again, because I didn't get them all.
Yeah, and Susan reminds me, some of the comments in Norm's letter were these are items that need to be discussed with the planning commission or with the township. So for instance, what type of recreational facilities would the township planning commission like to see at the project? So the ordinance and Norm's letter talk about discussions that have to happen to determine issues like that.
If I could. I think one of the things that's important to point out at this point in the process is you've got different levels and different layers as to what's going on. There's no point in talking about concrete curb details at this point. There's no point in talking about, I think there's an elevation that's off, 6 inches. You're talking higher level at this point. So I think it's at this point it's valuable to give Susan input if she feels she needs it to be able to further finalize the development or impacts to the layout either vertically or horizontally. But there's some of the discussion that needs to happen, I would say, I would agree, between Susan and I to get through some of this zoning stuff that could potentially impact layout. When you start to get closer to finalizing the layout and you get PC input on things that we talked about, the peripheral stuff, that's when you want to come in front of the PC and give the applicant's engineer some feedback as far as what your thoughts, ideas are, and the wishes of the township.
We could not agree more.
Yeah, if I could weigh in too, I'm sorry, my name's Tim Hendricks and I'm the owner of the project here. 100% agreement. And I think in fairness and deference to your time, we should shrink this letter down to 15 pages and then be sitting with you. Because so much of it is, like Norm just said, I mean, there's technical stuff that you probably don't really care about, stuff you're not even going to notice when the development's being built. But in the process of working out between Norm and Susan on our side, the engineer, just to give an example, it may mean a road moves a little bit. Well, then you really don't want to decide what recreational uses you want in there because you don't know the dimensions of the property. So if we go and pick it all out, we might start all over again and we realize, okay, that doesn't fit anymore. So we could really work through that if you gave us the time for the engineers to work together. When the traffic engineer review comes through, when the county planning commission reviews come through, let us address those. Give us 1 or 2 rounds between Susan and Norm to whittle this down, and then come to you and ask what you want to do and what your thoughts are. I mean, if we can get Norm to the point where he agrees that we've met, and we really, literally, when we went through this letter, we sat down and we spent 5 hours going through the letter. I really don't think you want to spend 5 hours going through the letter.
We have.
What?
We have.
I do.
Wait, do you want to go through 5 hours tonight?
No, but
I don't
I don't know.
Okay, no, whatever you want to
What
do.
I'm saying is, we've gone through all of this.
Okay, yeah, no, I'm just saying, we went through,
Okay.
and literally, more than half of it was just, we agree, we'll take care of that, we agree. So I would like to get all that stuff covered, so that then we get down to the stuff that you need to tell us what to do. That would be our preference. It's not minimizing your involvement, it's just not spending time, Susan went through with Mike and I, this is how we're gonna resolve this. Well, okay, yeah, that's how we're gonna resolve it, but I don't know that you care, So I was just saying, yeah, and another example, Mike talked about a special exception, or was it special exception,
Special
right?
exception.
With a special exception, we just need to have some conversations, because it's saying, hey, you need a special exception for the clubhouse. Well, one, it says in your ordinance that normal customary accessory uses are permitted, so they wouldn't need that. We think a clubhouse applies. On the other hand, if you don't want a clubhouse, we'll just get rid of the clubhouse, you know what I mean? So we're not in here trying to fight, we just thought we were trying to put in what was wanted. It was in the CKS letter, you know, how many EDUs are gonna run through the sewer plant. We don't know how many houses we're gonna get yet. We don't know if you wanna include the Frederick community. You know, we need those answers before we can give you all the details. So it's just gotta be a little bit, I think, of, you know, we whittle it down and then come to you for direction on how to proceed. But that's, obviously, we'll follow your lead, whatever you want.
Okay, so we're gonna listen to experts go over stuff.
Yeah, you can ask John and Norman, do either of you have any questions that you wanna ask the applicant about your review letters?
I guess the only question I have is, have you had any discussions with Frederick Living with regards
Yes.
to connections?
Yes.
What were those discussions?
The non-legal position is that the Frederick Living's permit for their sewer plant expires if they have an option to tie in a public sewer. So they would be required to fit into our system. And they believe that that's what's gonna happen. And we're waiting now to get direction from the township to know how we are to proceed. So at this point, I think they anticipate and plan on being part of it. On the water, I think their position is they would not want to be involved. Again, they'll speak for themselves, but I believe that is the position currently. On sewer, you know, as we need to have this conversation, as an example, I realize this is a new administration of the township, and I completely respect that. So what we were told previously doesn't necessarily factor into the conversations we're having now, so we're gonna need direction. If I can give you just one example with sewer. We're permitted to build multifamily homes. I think it goes without saying, you need some form of public sewer treatment for multifamily homes. You can't do sand mounds for multifamily homes, individual on lot. It doesn't exist. So you need some sort of form of treatment. We can build a treatment facility on the site, and DEP does not want the Frederick community's old failing system, so they say, build a new one bigger and put it in there, which we're prepared to do, and that's what we show here. Another option is New Hanover, your adjoining neighbor. They have plenty of capacity, they're not looking for more homes in their township either. And they would let us pump it into their treatment plant at a size of a force main that would now allow other homes to tie in. And now you're not in the sewer business. I think the township has had a bad experience in the sewer business, which is not connected to our job. This could be HOA. All I'm saying is we're gonna need direction. So, you know, the previous administration said, this is what they want. We gotta find out what you guys want. And we're open to either one. We're not here to lobby for one or the other, it's just we need to have those conversations. But I think at this point, really, from my perspective as a developer, we need to get Norm comfortable with a 15-page review letter. Then we know how many homes we're gonna be building. And then we come in and talk to you about that kind of stuff. Right now, there's a lot of things, and some of the changes that Norm's looking for, and I'm not saying they're completely appropriate to say, but it may change the lot count, and we'll work through that. We need to do that. That's our job to do it through that. Once we know a number of homes, then we have that conversation with you. So I just, you know, there's a certain order that we need to do this, or else we're designing things that they're too big or too small or too whatever, and we need some answers on those things. So there was a time, just in bringing everybody to speed, where the previous administration was saying design sewer for your job, for the Frederick community, and for as many as 50 other connections. There was a concept of tying in, you know, the cul-de-sac down past the home, it has a little treatment plant, tying that in. There was the idea of some failed systems. You guys may think the same thing, you might think something totally different. There was a time we discussed going to New Hanover, and that seemed interesting, then they said, no, we want to be in the sewer business. Well, I think evolved, no, we don't want to be in the sewer business. We just have to have that conversation. So we're not going to say this is what we're doing, because obviously you gotta approve it. But I just think that some of those things, we're just getting the cart in front of the horse for that conversation.
I just wanna note that, separated, two separate projects, they're dependent on each other. Water's on one parcel, sanitary sewage being treated on another parcel.
We would welcome however you wanna treat it. I mean, for me, I look at it as one subdivision. The reason was it fit easier on plan pages, plan sheets and all of that for reading and but I agree with you completely. We realize it gets ultimately approved as one or not approved as one. It gets billed as one. Agreed 100%.
And I think that we all know that there'll need to be some sort of phasing so that we can build it and have all of the appropriate water and sewer facilities available
With phase
for
one.
the units, but, yeah. So there will be some creative phasing as well.
What we can say, and again, Susan, please correct me if you think I'm wrong, what we can say is that there's nothing in the review letters that we've received so far that would suggest to us that the project cannot be built. That, as Tim said, there may be changes to the plan that result in the reduction of the number of units. There may be some changes in geometry of roads here and there, but at the end of the day, there's nothing in these review letters that suggests that the project can't be built. To bring this back to square and to echo what Tim and Susan said, we have to be given the opportunity to revise and resubmit from an engineering and an ownership perspective, and we certainly have to be given that opportunity from a legal perspective.
Was that
That's all I
everything, John?
Yeah.
Norm, did you have anything you wanted to ask?
Curious, have you had a scoping meeting with PennDOT yet?
No.
Just curious as to what they might say, and I'm guessing you probably would want a traffic report and get a little further on traffic before you do that with PennDOT anyway, just to see how it could possibly.
We do have a
We
traffic
did compare-
engineer involved and we
Yeah.
did,
We submitted a study.
we did not have a scoping meeting, you are correct. However, the same team of us here are doing some other projects with PennDOT, which, the same people on the PennDOT side, and we discussed the job. So our engineer is Andy Heinrich and Klein. And so Andy has been in communication with PennDOT directly as to what we believe needs to happen in getting PennDOT generally on board. The next step for PennDOT is to submit an application. But we wanted to get the township's feedback on that because some of the conversation we had in the past would be different than what PennDOT's looking at, but then again, we have a new administration, so we don't even know what response we're gonna get at this point yet, so we need that in order to proceed with PennDOT.
And notably, as I, not to beat the horse, but a review letter from the township traffic engineer would be very helpful in getting that ball rolling.
No, I don't have anything else.
So Norm, when the project or the development is completed, how much water are you projecting that's gonna come out of the aquifer every day? So daily consumption once it's completed?
Out of the aquifer as a result
Of
of,
the wells?
I don't know what their numbers are for their well study.
And really, that should be for either one.
Okay.
That could be for either one.
Yeah, there wasn't some,
Pardon?
there was no studies submitted for well withdrawal.
Would you have a rough number that you would be comfortable in throwing out for discussion purposes in a multifamily and a single family for daily usage? Because we could do the math, right here, it's 220 units of the multifamily and 58 of the single family. We could do some quick, 200 and something a day, or give a comfort number on that, or not really? Not to put you on the spot.
Not at this point.
Okay.
Okay.
That will be part of the review process though.
Okay, so it seemed to me there were numbers that, like 180 to 200 gallons per person per day.
Per home, not per person. There wouldn't be 1,000 units, 1,000 gallons per house.
My fear is the water that's pumped out of the aquifer, it ends up in the sewer, and it goes down Swamp Creek. It's a net loss to the aquifer. So I'd like to figure out a way to get it back. And a sand mound would be perfect. That would keep the water in there, but with what they're planning, that's not in the cards. So the other way that I was wondering, with the BMPs, and I think in your report, you had said some of the BMPs were not the type that recharge groundwater. Could all of those BMPs recharge the aquifer?
I don't know that a BMP is gonna infiltrate enough, especially with the type of soils that Upper Frederick has, that you're gonna recharge that. Certainly the best scenario is on-site water, on-site sewer. You know, you generally tend to keep more of your water as a resource.
Okay,
Because when you pump it out as a well and run it through a sewer plant, discharge it to a creek, it generally tends to, that's not a desirable situation.
Or you wanna connect it to the public water of 73 and not do
Well,
wells?
it's still a net loss, because we've got Frederick Living, we've got Ivy Ridge and the surrounding homes, and then, there's 2 wells that have recently gone dry in the area, so,
Well, what if Frederick Living went on public water? Will you entertain public water coming down 73?
Norm, what do you think on that?
Well, that's another discussion to have, because the concern there is you get PA American or somebody like that in the township.
Oh, and then they're in.
They're in. And what that allows is generally against what Fred is trying to do, limit growth. So that's something else to consider. I mean, the BMPs are certainly going to help,
Okay.
but I think it'll be a fraction of what would be used from a well that was drilled.
We have drilled wells on site and already tested, we have all the wells we need. Obviously, we need to test the neighbors, the whole process of permitting, all of that. But we did do wells, the large wells are already in place for the public water, and have well more than anything we could possibly need. But it doesn't mitigate your issue, I'm just saying, the water is there if you chose to go with well water on site.
You said that you did do studies there.
Oh, wells are all in already.
And
We
you
spent a
did
couple hundred
studies.
thousand putting the wells in.
You did do studies.
You measure the water coming out of the well, what it generates per minute or per hour.
Do you have the results of those studies?
No, we have everything, yeah. They're not required as part of a submission, but we need direction. Yeah, we can turn stuff over. The numbers were multiple times what would be needed for the site. And there's multiple wells, that you have redundancy, and we wouldn't even need what we have. But that's all been done.
Then, if that's a concern that the PC has, could you just turn that information over so it gives them
Yeah,
something
sure,
to
absolutely,
look at?
absolutely. With the next submission, we'll include that.
Did you do the water quantity test?
What is the
Or
water?
the water quality test, I'm sorry.
Okay. Well, in the process, there is certain testing to make sure that the water will be able to be used for drinking water. The preliminary stuff, the testing, yeah, I mean, it goes to a lab, all that stuff, that hasn't been done so far yet.
That has been?
No, we came in tonight knowing that we can do public water, or I'm sorry, a water system on site to meet the needs of the community.
If you brought up public water in Dam 73, where would that water come from?
This is for their testing.
I don't know the answer to that, we could research it. The last administration did not want public water. I had proposed that initially and was told no.
Because if that was coming from
I understand your point completely, absolutely, and I don't know the answer, and so I don't wanna give you misinformation. I'm just telling you that, we were, and from our perspective, trying to work together with the last group that was here, and they gave us direction that they wanted on-site wells, so we brought well drillers in. We worked here for months last year, put in all these wells, and did the tests, and we know we have the water, so when we submitted the plans, we knew that we had the ability to deliver on that.
Okay, so you did do the ordinance number 2024-03.
What is that? I don't know.
Well, you just said that you did the water quality test.
We checked to see if the water was safe, and we know that we can deliver. There's a process to go through for permitting. I mean, we can't do some of these things without knowing how many houses are going in, and, you know, I mean, we can, we really should be going through in kind of an order of what's logical here. Let's figure out what we can build, what's there, then we can tell you how many gallons will be taken, you know, as far as it's gonna be built, it's gonna be based off the number of homes. So the multifamily draws so many gallons per day, whether it be public or community. Single family is gonna be a different number of gallons. Until we know those things, we can't even give you numbers on that because we don't know what we're working with yet. But we did, there is a process, we need to test the neighbors' wells, all that. We didn't do that because we don't want the township hearing from neighbors that were out there testing their wells.
Well, you gotta
before
do
we
is don't.
do it.
You didn't tell us. All you gotta do is
Hold
don't.
on, everybody please.
You didn't do that.
I said we did not.
Well, you should've.
Okay.
Well, we first have to get somewhere with the township.
Well, I can show you
Hold
my
on,
results.
please, sir, we will give everybody a chance to talk.
So we need to get somewhere with the township, and then we go through that process as part of the land development process.
Well, I'm assuming you had an engineer or somebody you didn't personally.
Correct.
So, did your engineer, whoever did the submission, did they, on the checklist, did they, you know, read the part that the checklist is intended as a guide only and in no way supersedes or replaces the requirements set forth in the Upper Frederick subdivision land development ordinance?
They're not here tonight, I can't tell you what they read or didn't read or what they did, but it's a firm that does water and sewer. Actually, there was another firm that did all the wells, all of that. Ebert Engineering will be designing the water and sewer here. They brought in, who did they bring in? Clark, I think is the name of the firm, that oversaw the drilling and then all the testing and all of that. So we're aware of what is required for your ordinance and prepared to abide by all of that. But until we have a little more detail, it's kind of hard to get down that path without knowing what we're doing.
Well, the problem, one of the problems I have that I'm looking at is the application's incomplete.
How's that?
Because you didn't do that water quality test.
Is that part of a preliminary submission?
Yes, it's required.
And a
And
preliminary,
it does tie into.
and a preliminary plan application?
It also ties into ordinance number 2023 for the water quantity test.
Is that part of a preliminary plan submission, which is what we're at so far?
It's.
Or is that part of final subdivision?
No, it's supposed to be done. It's supposed to be done before the preliminary plan submission.
Well, it's required to be, it says a phase 1 study shall be conducted for all projects required to do a water resources impact study and shall be submitted with the preliminary plan. If that's something that's missing, then the township consultants can raise that issue, and we have to be given the opportunity to respond to what the township identifies as deficiencies.
Right, well, that's
To date,
I know that's not a deficiency as what you're talking about, deficiency, but you have right here, you know, right in your own, in south single sheets and the north single sheets, sheet SHT03 subnotes, you know, all construction shall be in conformance with PennDOT, PA, DEP, Montgomery County Conservation District, the Upper Frederick Township, and other appropriate